meeting someone who doesn't need to chase you, someone whose presence alone feels like fate, like destiny. They don't threaten you with teeth bared, they invite you with a whisper. Would you run, or would you stay to see what it feels like to be truly seen? Today, we're exploring not just a vampire myth, but a question about ourselves. Why do we fear the people who know us best? And why do we sometimes crave the darkness they show us? Welcome back to Tales Mythology. In this video, I want you to forget what you know about fangs and coffins. We're going to talk about Carmilla not just as the first female vampire in modern literature, but as a metaphor for desire, loneliness, and the price of intimacy. Stay with me to the end, because I promise you, this isn't just about folklore, it's about the truth hiding in your own heart. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Tales Mythology. We need your help to get there. Let's begin. Let's talk about who Carmilla really is. Not just a name in a vampire novel, but a legend older than Dracula himself. Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu wrote Carmilla in 1870, to decades before Bram Stoker's Dracula, but the folklore it draws on is even older. Eastern Europe was obsessed with vampire stories long before Victorian England ever made them fashionable. In those old tales, vampirism wasn't about raw violence alone. It was about fear of corruption, of women who refused to stay in their place, a woman who wanted too much, who loved too deeply, or who wielded sexual power was unnatural, monstrous. In many ways, Carmilla is the dark mirror of those fears. She's beautiful, seductive, and intimate. She doesn't stalk you with fangs bared, she waits for you to invite her in. She becomes your confidant, your lover, your doom. Think about this. How often in real life do we fear the people who see us most clearly, who know our vulnerabilities? There's a reason so many legends make the monster someone you can't resist. It's not just about blood, it's about giving up control. When I first read Carmilla, I didn't see a monster, I saw tragedy. A woman cursed not only to kill, but to remember every person she destroys, to hold those memories like scars that never heal. This isn't just a horror story, it's a story about love that devours. And don't we all know someone who loved too much, who suffocated us with their need, even as we wanted them? That's what Carmilla is. She's not just a vampire, she's the fear that the thing you love most will destroy you and that you'll let it. The legend says Carmilla was buried in Styria, her body preserved unnaturally, her heart never stopping. Villagers whispered of girls who died smiling in their sleep. But let's unpack that symbolism. In the Victorian era, there was an obsession with innocence. Women were supposed to be passive, chaste, obedient. The idea of a female predator who seduces with tenderness, who makes you want the doom she offers, that was scandalous. Carmilla embodies forbidden's desire, not just eroticism, but intimacy. She isn't content to drink your blood, she wants to know you. She learns your secrets, shares your dreams, becomes the voice in your head. Let's pause here. Have you ever had a friend or partner who felt like they knew you too well? Who could finish your sentences, soothe your fears, but also manipulate you with that same knowledge? Real-life emotional vampires don't need supernatural powers. They just need to make you dependent on them. Carmilla is that fear, personified. When Laura meets Carmilla, she doesn't fall instantly. She's lured slowly, gently. The bite doesn't come first, gaze does. The soft words, the secrets shared in candlelight. If this sounds like grooming, that's because it is. But the horror here is that Laura wants it. She craves it. That's the real curse of Carmilla. She doesn't take, she makes you give, willingly. It's a cautionary tale about the price of intimacy without boundaries. And yet this is important. Carmel isn't just evil. She's lonely, condemned to remember every life she ends. Imagine that, being cursed to remember every heartbreak you cause. Let's step back from the legend for a moment and talk about real life. Have you ever known a love story that went wrong in a very quiet way? Not with fights and shouting, but with silences that turned into chasms. Laura's home is described as a sanctuary in the Austrian hills. Roses droop in mourning. The metaphor is thick here. Beauty that conceals decay. When Carmilla arrives, even the flowers seem to bow in fear. That's how the unspoken can ruin even the safest places. In my own life, I've seen relationships where someone new comes in and changes everything, not by force, but by being so alluring that you want to change for them. Laura dreams not of terror, but of pleasure. She doesn't wake screaming, she wakes breathless. She isn't forced to love Carmilla. She chooses it. That's what makes the story so unsettling. It's not about assault. It's about seduction that feels mutual, but it's not equal. Carmilla reads poetry to Laura in a voice that casts spells. She hums lullabies no living woman should know. She brushes Laura's hair with a natural tenderness. These are the tools of someone who knows how to make you feel seen, who knows you want to be known. That's why the story resonates even today. How many toxic relationships begin with feeling special, with someone telling you secrets, sharing dreams, giving you exactly what you need until you don't know where you end and they begin. Carmilla is that. She's every unhealthy love story dressed up as fate. And it's not a monster chasing you in the dark, it's the darkness you invite in willingly. Carmilla doesn't attack in a frenzy of blood that would be too easy to resist. Instead, she infiltrates. She becomes part of Laura's daily life. Think about that for a second. It's not the fear of being hunted that defines this horror. It's the fear of accepting the hunt. Laura describes their friendship in terms that are shockingly intimate for the Victorian period. She says Carmilla embraces her, whispers to her at night, confesses love in words, so fervent they blur the line between friendship and romance. And Laura is confused, but not disgusted. She's curious. She wants to know more. That's what makes Carmilla so effective. She doesn't pounce. She cultivates. She makes you dependent on her affection, her understanding, her secrets. Have you ever had someone love bomb you? Someone who shows so much interest and affection that it overwhelms your common sense? That's Carmilla in a nutshell. She doesn't demand Laura's love outright. She gives Laura the illusion that it's safe, that it's natural, even while everyone else in the house senses something is deeply wrong. That tension, they sense that you know something's wrong, but can't stop yourself, is a core part of the horror. Because what's scarier than being prey? Wanting to be. Camera slow zoom. Narrator lowers voice. I think about this when I think about abusive relationships. They rarely begin with threats. They begin with understanding, with shared secrets, with the feeling that no one has ever seen you this clearly. But that knowledge is a weapon. Carmilla is not just a vampire. She's a manipulator. And the novel makes you watch as Laura slowly realizes it's too late. That's the fear Le Fanu tapped into. Not the fear of monsters, but the fear of ourselves, of the parts of us that crave surrender. And if you've ever been in a relationship that turned dark slowly, you know that horror isn't confined to fiction. Let's talk about the subtext. Actually, let's call it what it is, text. Carmilla is one of the earliest openly sapphic vampires in literature. She doesn't hide her attraction to Laura. It's physical, emotional, and romantic. For Victorian readers, this was scandalous. Lesbian desire wasn't just taboo, it was considered predatory, corrupting. And that's why the story frames Carmilla as a monster. But here's the thing, Laura's reactions aren't pure fear. She feels confusion, yes, but also attraction. She describes Carmilla as beautiful, magnetic. She wants her. That's part of why this story has lasted. It didn't just invent the seductive female vampire, it captured the genuine terror and longing of forbidden's desire. Victorian readers might have pretended to be scandalized, but they were also enthralled. And let's not kid ourselves, even today, there's a cultural tendency to frame queerness as predatory or unnatural. Carmilla taps into that. But is Carmilla evil because she loves women? No. She's evil because she kills them, because she feeds on them. The tragedy is that her vampirism distorts her love. It turns passion into predation. There's something deeply sad about that. I want you to think about Carmilla not as a monster first, but as someone cursed to always destroy what she loves. That's the heartbreak at the core of the novella, and it's why I don't think she's a villain in the traditional sense. She's a metaphor for what happens when love has no boundaries, when desire consumes, when you can't stop, even when you know you should. And for queer readers over the decades, that hit hard, because they were told for so long that their love was inherently dangerous, that it would destroy the innocent. Carmilla is both a warning and a tragedy, and that complexity is why she still matters. One thing I find incredibly haunting about Carmilla is that she's not just an anonymous predator. She remembers her victims. There's a scene where Laura realizes Carmilla has used different names over the centuries, but always the same pattern. Always a new friendship, a new seduction, a new death, and yet Carmilla remembers them all. Imagine the weight of that. She doesn't get to forget the girls who loved her, the ones she destroyed. That's something most vampire stories skip over. Dracula doesn't seem especially guilty. Modern vampires often wallow in sexy brooding, sure, but they're typically romanticized. Carmilla is different. Even in her moments of monstrous hunger, there's something desperately human about her. She wants love. She wants to belong. But she can't. Her hunger makes true connection impossible. I think that's the real horror here. Not that she's a killer, but that she knows what she's lost. This is a story about loneliness that becomes lethal, about a need so strong it ruins everything. And if you've ever felt that your love is too much, that you'll drive people away, that wanting connection will end up hurting them, you know what that feels like. Carmilla is a monster because she's us at our worst. Needy, consuming, unable to stop, and she pays for it with eternal memory. Let's talk about the ending. Laura's father and General Spielsdorf discover the truth. They find Carmilla's tomb. They stake her, cut off her head, burn her. Classic vampire slaying, right? But it's not triumphant. It's clinical, grim. Laura is left traumatized. She never truly recovers. She has nightmares for years. That's a crucial detail. The story doesn't treat Carmilla's destruction as a victory. It's a necessity, but it leaves scars. There's no celebration, just relief and lingering sorrow. Because Laura did love Carmilla in her way. She was victimized, yes, but she was also complicit in the emotional intimacy. She let herself be vulnerable. She opened up. That's what makes the betrayal so personal. Killing Carmilla doesn't erase what happened. It just stops it from happening again. And Laura is left with the knowledge that she was seduced, used, and changed forever. It's a chilling ending because it doesn't pretend trauma can be neatly resolved. It doesn't offer moral clarity. It just ends with Laura broken and Carmilla destroyed. No winners, only consequences. So why does Carmilla still matter? Why does a short novella from 1872 keep showing up in academic essays, vampire shows, and TikTok analysis videos? It's not just the gothic atmosphere, though that's excellent. And it's not just the early depiction of queerness, though that's vital. Carmilla endures because it taps into something timeless. The terror of love that's unequal, the danger of desire without boundaries, the ache of being seen and consumed. And let's be honest, we're still telling this story. Every time a new show features a morally ambiguous sapphic vampire, every time a villain is more seductive than scary, every time love is treated as a form of power and danger. That's Carmilla's legacy. She's the mother of the femme fatale, the prototype of the tragic monster, the ghost of every relationship that left you wondering if you were the one who invited your own destruction. And here's the thing, Laura survives, but she doesn't move on. She tells this story not to warn you, but because she can't forget. That's the most gothic thing of all. When horror doesn't end, it echoes. If you like this deep dive into Tales Mythology horror and want more like it, consider subscribing or supporting the channel on Tales Mythology. It helps me keep making the kind of content that haunts you in all the right ways. Until next time, stay strange.